Ooh, the most above average podcast in the galaxy.
Turn the light off, like your memory
Before we start today's podcast, I wanted to take a moment to say thank you. The most above average podcast in the galaxy is not sponsored by anyone. Everything that you see and hear is paid for directly by us. We do, however, have affiliate links, and the money that comes in from those affiliates does help pay for us to have more hosting platforms, better equipment so you can hear us better, so you can see us better. The money that comes in from that is just icing on the cake. We do this out of the pure love of just chit-chatting with each other and bringing on guests. If you would like for the show to continue, we ask you to support the ones that support us. Again, all the links are in the bio. And thank you, and we hope you enjoy. Welcome back to the most above average podcast in the galaxy. As always, I am joined by my lovely bearded co-host, Josh. And today we are joined with what could be the greatest mustache I have ever seen. My good friend, Chris. Chris, before we jump into it, I want to clear the air. What is the correct way of pronouncing your last name?
It's just like the state of Minnesota, spelled the same as well, Minnes.
Okay. Because we hear a lot of different variations for your name.
It's such a simple word, but it definitely gets pretty annihilated, especially when we have a state with the exact same pronunciation and spelling.
Hey, man, common sense is getting less common. It just is part of the deal. But it's always funny because, I can't even count how many years it's been since I've been going to Center Podium shows that I've heard your name pronounced so many different ways. It made me question. I'm like, he's a friend of mine. I'm pretty sure I'm saying his name wrong.
Yeah, it's common, but
so for those of you
who forgive everyone if you've mispronounced it.
So for the people who don't know, good friend Chris, you're the head honcho. You're the man for Center Podium. Granted, you do have a great team behind you, but it's your baby. And you have some of the most iconic bodybuilding shows around. Not even just on the West Coast, because you're in multiple states. You're now in a completely different country as well, tackling into international waters. But you've been able to set up some of the most impressive and most memorable NPC shows out there. I mean, people will plan an entire year out just to come and do some of your shows. The Tahoe show is a legend in its own right. I mean, that show could be branded as a whole company. You've got amazing things like the Legion Sports Fest, which is amazing because you have so many different things other than just bodybuilding, and every year it just keeps growing. It's one of these things. I'm like, man, how can you top it? And there's more events, there's more vendors, and it's been fascinating to watch. And I definitely feel very blessed to be able to be a part of, I get to go there and I'm a fan and I'm just like, wow, this is great. I wish more people could come and see this. But I wanted to dive into it. So when you got your start, maybe say you've been a competitor before. What was it that made you want to become a show promoter? What did you see that you thought, oh man, this seems amazing? Or was it something that, oh, you know what? I can do it better.
It was definitely the latter. When you're a bodybuilder, when you're a competitor, you put everything you have into it. You got to dedicate your life 24/7. You're spending a lot of money, a lot of time, and you're suffering a lot. And when I went to my first show, my second show, my third show, I honestly, with what the promoters provided, I was a little offended. I was like, wow, I worked this hard to be at your show, and you couldn't have worked at least a little bit of that. That's 10% of how hard we all worked to be here to present a wonderful experience, an organized experience, a beautiful stage, a comfortable environment. All of that was missing. And I had an events background already. I kid you not, I produced my first event when I was 14. I would write, I had a band. I was on the board directors of our teen center. So I was producing concerts and all kinds of things, eventually renting venues by the time I was 16, writing press releases, these types of things. went on to become, after college, a director of events for a ski area with big events. They had previously had the X Games there, so that was sort of the scale of our events, and we had over 100 a year. So I had this events background, and I've seen like how much better we could be doing than what was happening at that time. Again, from a venue or production standpoint, or just simply the way we're communicated with or treated. And, I went into it with the first one, which was the Tahoe show, with that mindset. Nobody thought Tahoe would work. It's got a population of 25,000. How's a bodybuilding show gonna work in a population of 25,000? I knew I had run hotels, or was running a hotel at the time, so I knew that Tahoe was a huge tourist destination and people want to go there. So what we do, we combine the beauty and majestic Lake Tahoe with a first class experience and a cool theater and a cool casino. And it worked. That's, as you said, it's still our probably most iconic brand within our portfolio. And I think everything that I've done since, I've modeled after that first show.
Yeah, there's something so magical about that Tahoe show. I remember I talked to Tamer about November last year when I saw him down in Anaheim, and he brought you up completely randomly, and he was like, "Hey man, that Chris guy, he had a vision for Tahoe, and everyone thought he was crazy, and look at him now." I was like, "Yeah, man, look at him now. That's pretty wild."
Driving him nuts.
Okay, so Tahoe was the first one. What year was that? What year was the first one?
2011.
Man, it's been
Yes. This will be our 15th Tahoe show.
then. Yeah, I know. S- Before I jump into the Legion one, I wanted to ask, when you did your first, because you already had a background in promotion, so you already had an idea of, what it was going to take with vendors and getting events set up. Was it more expensive than what you thought it was going to be, or were you pretty already on par with what it was going to be?
Uh, no, I've already I'd written budgets, and I knew, fortunately I was local there and had, a Tahoe, so I was probably able to do some things financially that other people wouldn't be able to do walking into Tahoe. I was actually what was I, the president of the lodging association, and in a city like South Lake Tahoe with over 10,000 rooms, that's all. It's like not quite mayor, but it's in that, it's in that echelon. So I was able to make some calls and get well treated with our lodging partners there. So that helped a lot. The problem I always do with budgets is I always project revenue to be way too high. I think everybody does that. We're gonna make $1 million. Okay, we made $58. Cool, but we broke even.
Now, this wasn't on our initial list of questions, but it was something that I had in the back of my mind. When you got into it, you got to pay your sanction fees. I mean, there's a lot of things that go behind the scenes to do something like this. Were you able to do this all on your own, or did you need the financial backing of, some of the sponsors for the shows or things like that? Or was it something that you're like, I can do this. I'm a one-man army.
Yeah, it was a cash. It's cash flow management. And so we didn't need to take out a loan. We didn't need to get investors. It was same even with the when we did the Ferrigno Legacy, which was a much greater cost. Um, the sanction fees and prize money. I'll get to that in a minute, but it's we'll put a pin in that because that gets interesting. Um, but you basically you build the website and revenue starts to come in from athletes and from the sponsors, and you're just timing things, and it's still that way today. It's just a much larger scale. You're just watching the money pass. It goes in and then it goes out, and you just time things away. You try to grab a little as it goes by if you can. But yeah, with the way a bodybuilding show works is most of the costs, not all of them, but most of them come after the show. You pay your people or your cash purses, your hotel venue rentals, hotel rooms, all of that is happening after the show. Before the show, of course, it's trophies, sanction fee, buttons, things along those lines, venue deposits. So, but I'd say maybe 50% happens after the show, and you just hope those tickets sell, or you're going to be paying it for the next few months, and that's happened too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always a fascinating thing because, everybody knows, I feel like I say this every episode. I travel a lot. And so I see all sorts of shows. I see different promoters. I see different ways things are done, how they handle the athletes, how they handle the coaches.
And it's one of the reasons why I always, even no matter where I am in the world, that I always make sure that I come back for your shows. Because for as long as I can remember, which has been way too long, every single one of my people has always felt like they were family. No one has ever been rude. There's more than enough expediters. No one ever feels rushed when they're backstage. Everyone is up to date. You're not running around looking for a spreadsheet. Oh my God, where am I? What class are they on? You have ample time. You've got a great crew running things, and it just feels like being part of the family. And it's really a really impressive thing. Um, but now with, you got expediters, you have a team, and you have pretty much the same crew every time. You've got I don't know if they want to be named, but you got the same crew.
I'll name them because they're awesome. Eric Ebenoha is our stage expediter, has been our stage expediter, I think since 2011 or 2012. I've had other expediters. At this point, I bring Eric with me to Kazakhstan for both those shows. It's such an important position, and he does it with such grace, with like he's like tries to blend into the background, and a good MC is like that too. Where they're not the star of the show. You just get people gently where they need to be. And yeah, it's him. Yvette Ruiz, she's been with us since day one. It's most of my backstage crew. It's been if it's not 10 years, it's been the entire scope of the shows.
Yeah, no, I mean, for the check-in process, people running around backstage. I mean, I've known Remy for years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've got great people, and they're there, and it's which is really nice to see familiar faces every time too. I've been backstage at places. I'm like, what the fuck is that guy? But so when you started bringing on people, and the company's growing, the success is building. What kind of issues or what kind of struggles did you notice as the company grew and you were expanding? Great, now you have to delegate some of these positions to other people. How was that hiring process like? Because now you're asking for someone, hey, come join this thing that's new, but it's exciting, and come grow with me.
I have the problem that every small business entrepreneur has, where they want to do everything, and nobody does it as good as you do, so you believe. And you have to. What I've learned is when you first hire somebody, nobody's going to do it as good as you, and you have to put in the time and sometimes the years to get them to that point. But when you can get them to that point, then they can do better than you ever did, because they can dedicate all of their time to their little world, rather than me, compartmentalizing 50 different tasks. There's still times when I'm part of everything. If the sales teams needs help, I'm jumping in, and it's good to jump in and to create new processes. We've definitely revised all of our processes, and you have to these days, because the evolution of communication. I'd say that's one of the bigger things when your sales is very difficult. We live in a world, when your phone rings, you don't answer it. Maybe if you know the number, you answer it if you feel like it, or you say, hey, yo, text me, so nobody picks up a phone anymore. Nobody feels obligated to respond to an email. Nobody feels obligated to respond to a DM. So trying to get through is more difficult than ever. And it is just how communication culture is evolving. So we start to implement all kinds of various tools to try to circumvent and circumnavigate some of these issues. Marketing is another one. My brand and the look of my brand, and it's very important to me. I'd say my brand and the way my brand looks in print or video and my stage are kind of my big pet peeves. When I look at other posters and they look like they're made in Word, and that's a good indication for athletes. Like, if the poster looks like it was made in Word, that's probably representative of the entire experience. The stages as well. Again, and that to me, the stage is a point of respect for the athletes. You put a beautiful stage out, you put beautiful lights out, you do what needs to be done, because this is the best they may ever look in their entire life. You have to. So I do have, I do dip in where I need to dip in when I need to dip in. I'd say my biggest challenge uh, is almost feeling guilty not doing all of the work. Okay, they're doing that. I can walk away and do what I need to do. The worst one for me is when the show's over and I want to pack the truck so bad. And I just feel terrible that when I'm not packing the truck, and I know like, dude, you should be taking the judges out to dinner, or doing the hosting the after party, doing the things, and, you've been there since 5 a.m. It's okay if you don't pack the truck, but I still want to pack the truck.
Yeah, someone told me, because as my business or businesses have grown, you have to delegate, because you can't be the one man army for everything. You're going to end up bottlenecking your own success. And someone told me that if you can find someone who can do the job that you would do at least 70% as good as you could do it, that's an okay percentage to turn it over to them, because then they can dedicate that time and they will progress and they will get better at it. That way you can go and delegate other things, whether it be creative, sales, things like that. But you're talking about the stage and respecting the athletes. For the people who have not been to the Motherload show and seen these incredible, huge, inflatable elephants, dude, these things are so cool. And every time I see them, I'm like, where the fuck do you store them? They're enormous.
They pack down to about this big.
I don't think Josh has been there for one of these. So at the Motherload show that Chris does, he has these huge, they've got to be they're 15 feet tall?
Yeah, they've we've got 3 sizes because my original size was too big for the stage.
Oh, no.
So I had to order the original, I think I want to say like the first one was even bigger, like 18. I get them from China, so they're in meters, the 18 or 19 8 feet, I should say. So, 3 or 4 meters. And yeah, they're big. It's amazing what you can, I mean, these guys in China, you dream up anything, they'll make it for you. I said, I want inflatable gold elephants. I got like 6.
Okay, Mr. Chris, we send them. UK and we send DHL.
Yes.
That Motherload show, that's a really fun thing. It was that show I seem to gets glazed over, and I don't know why. I don't know whether it's a scheduling issue, because it's May time. It's around Mother's Day. But man, that stage thing and the introduction that you do, and everyone's in such fun costumes, and you bring all the competitors out there on stage before the show starts. That's such a fun thing. Yeah.
We moved it this year to, we switched Legion and Motherload. So Motherload will now be Halloween weekend. And I think that might be appropriate for that show. I've definitely observed the shows get bigger as the year goes on. I mean, these guys who have shows in March, they're in huge markets with 15 million people and only getting 30 athletes. To me, it's like, that's just a bad experience. I wouldn't ever produce something that was like that. I would feel embarrassed if I was an athlete on stage standing there alone. So, we start in May. That's part of the reason we start in May, and we see it really ramp up and pushed a little later because the Legion was now end of September. I think being the end of October is going to get us some more participation.
So before we jump into the Legion and the scheduled change, I did want to go back to the Ferrigno Legacy thing. So that started, but it was very short-lived, but it was so well received. What ended up happening with that?
What's the story there?
Yeah.
So it lasted 4 years. That was one, we were talking about financial management. In the beginning, I sat down with Lou Ferrigno Jr. and Jim Mannion in 2013 and said, we want to do this. And nobody could get into Southern California. But when you had Lou Ferrigno's name, you could do it. And I tried it with other Olympia champions, and the Mannions were not having it. But for Lou, they said yes. But back then it was John Lindsay who was running Southern California. And John Lindsay, I don't have a lot of great things to say about him, honestly. He made our life very, very difficult. And he said, okay, you cannot advertise this show until you have all of the sanction money and all of the prize money basically in escrow. And what that meant was we had to raise over $50,000 before the show even existed without advertising it. But we did it. Between Lou and me, our reputation for the Tahoe show, we were able to get that money and make it happen. John Lindsay was shocked. They gave us a choice of Thanksgiving weekend or Nationals weekend to host the show. I decided with Thanksgiving weekend. They were shocked because we had like 250 athletes. They couldn't believe it. Again, I think with the political climate in Southern California at that time, people were really wanted an alternative. I would say they probably still do. I think any market is healthier with competition. And that's probably why we see that market shrinking down there so much. But yeah, it popped off. It became the biggest show in Southern California. It maxed out at 391 uh, athletes hard. It's without crossovers, without pros, like 391 NPC. That was a long night. We expand. So to answer your question, what happened? Um, we'll get into it a little bit here, but it was always profitable, and then we did the expo, and the expo was not well attended. It was in Palm Springs. We had to be in that area because John Lindsay wouldn't let us be any closer to southern, like into LA or San Diego, so they pushed us out into the desert, which was kind of he eventually got what he wanted, which was the show to fail. And what ended up happening was it broke even, and Lou wanted to continue, but his family did not. They and honestly, we're getting a little maybe a touchy subject here, but if like Lou and his wife are divorced now, and Lou no longer speaks with any of the family anymore. I've seen the inner dynamics of that, and I would say that they kind of live in Lou's shadow. And when Lou started, me and Lou were having a blast, we went to the Arnold, and I hired security, like 6 guys, and we just moved through the crowd. We went and hooked up with Arnold in his suite, and talking to every advertiser. And I said to Lou, Lou was famous for selling his autographs. Do you remember that?
I do.
He sells autographs. That leaves a bad taste in people's mouth. You're a 9-year-old kid. Hey, will you sign this? $20. Like that's not a good look. So I said, Lou, you can never do that again. That's how too many people remember you that way, and they need to remember you. They will remember you no matter what. So let's make sure they remember you in a positive way. And I told him, Lou, every smile's $1. Think of it that way. Man, he went into that expo having a blast. Chickarilla comes up to me. He goes, Chris, who the fuck is this guy? This is not the Lou Ferrigno I know. This guy's having a blast. And so that's what happened. He goes home. He goes to his family. Me and Chris had a blast. And you could kind of feel the family was getting a little uncomfortable with that. Like Lou's having too much of a good time. And that was what I observed. And when Lou left his wife, I hadn't talked to him in a while. I shot him a text. I was like, Lou, I know your family. I know you. And I'm sure this is great for you. And he said, thank you so much, Chris. It's nice to hear from you and this kind of things. That's probably too much to share, but it was, that's really was the demise. It wasn't Lou. Last thing Lou said to me, it was in his living room. He gives me a hug and he goes, thank you for making me relevant in bodybuilding again. You imagine, like, here's this kid, this guy, he's your hero,
Yeah.
to say something like that and to have the ability to touch someone's life like that was huge. And so it was disappointing to have his ex-wife and his son decide to not move forward with a event anymore.
I mean, that's a heart-wrenching thing for sure. And it's wild because, the magazines, they cover, what they're allowed to cover. And I figured there was more than what was publicly said. Does he have any aspirations to rekindle it? Or is he just he's out of it?
I don't know. I don't know. And I may, I was actually seriously thinking of just inviting him to the Legion this year, see what he says.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I talked to his best friend when I was at the Arnold this year, and nothing but good things to say. And at minimum, I saw Lou as a good friend back then, and I hate to lose that because somebody else had a different agenda. So I think it's time to reach out and see if he wants to come up and hang out at the Legion. No pressure, no booths, no signatures, no selfies. Just come and enjoy the show.
Yeah, just be a fan. Just have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Be
that'd
the
be a lot
legend
of fun.
you are.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, he's the Hulk. I mean, super, super fun. So, am I correct that Legion spawned from that? That's how the Legion Sports Fest came
Yes,
about?
yeah. If you look closely, you'll see the font is the same.
I watch everything, but I wanted to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as they were out, I changed the one thing that about the Ferrigno Legacy was it was about one guy, and I wanted it to make it about everybody. And that's why I chose the name Legion. What is the Legion? A Legion is a group of people with one mission in mind, working together to move forward. That's what a Legion is. So an exact opposite of the Ferrigno Legacy, which honored one person, I wanted to honor everybody involved with this, everyone working together to not just have an incredible event, but to move the industry in a really positive direction, create opportunities that might have not been there before. You know, I look at a lot of athletes and they're doing great during their career, but haven't lined themselves up very well for the end of their career. And I try to use my platform as much as I can to help those athletes transition from being, you know, a top Olympian to, you know, a businessman. And what can I do to support that, you know? And you know, sometimes these big names, they have this incredible following and they don't really know what to do with it. So, you know, I bring them in and said, all right, what's your goals? How can I help you? You know, and then at that point, then we can help each other, you know, throw a few posts up for me. I'll do basically some consulting and support your business and let's see what we can do together. And it's a really like pretty awesome, genuine relationship of, you know, of just lifting everybody up.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. And that's really the best you can ever ask for is just, hey man, you know, I want all my people to thrive. Like I just had an issue happen today and my team has grown. It's pretty big. I joke that I say that I babysit a lot of adults, but I do. Uh, but I had an issue with the HRT clinic that we use. They gave me personally, really bad medical advice, and I they didn't address it. And I said this is unacceptable, and they're like, well, you know, we'll pass it on to the appropriate representative to handle the rest of this. And I was like, that's not acceptable. So I let the entire team know in a gigantic broadcast message that effectively, immediately, today, anyone from the team, we do not use this company. Now, I don't own my people, so if you choose to use them, that is on you, but understand that these people do not have your health at the best part of their interest. And when you can take a look at some pretty shady blood work and be like, oh, you know, you only got 10% of your kidney function, here's more drugs. Like, no, don't.
Right.
That's a no.
Let's pump the
So
brakes.
making sure that, you know, all of your people are doing well and thriving, it really shows. You know, that's how you end up with longevity in every aspect of you end up with, you know, employee retention, client retention, all these great things because you're being selfless and helping. So then they want to, in return, help you too. It's a beautiful snowball effect. Um, so with the Legion, you know, it seems like every year you're adding more things to it. And I know Josh is just chomping at the bit to ask about
Yeah.
this.
Well, because
So
I've been to Legion a couple times with athletes that I've trained for the powerlifting competition, and then just seeing how it is there, it's amazing. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah, man. You know, the goal is to, you know, be in the echelon of the Arnold and the Olympia. And well, you know, obviously, what's the Olympia now? 60 years old. So the Legion is 8 years old. And it's nice to start to see us being included in the conversation with those names. That's the goal. You know, there's a long way to go, but we keep pushing, and a lot can be done. You know, I'm just a bodybuilder. I didn't, you know, I wasn't born with money. Everything I have, I got, you know, and you know, there's no big bank account behind me, so you can do a lot, or you know, you have no choice but to do a lot with creativity, with innovation, when you don't really have millions of dollars to just throw into cash purses or production side. And you know, what I've learned is from when I ran hotels to Tahoe show to Legion is to look at every single aspect of your operations, of your product, and see how you can improve it. And when you do that over and over again, and you look at your trophy and go, I want it to be just a little different to improve it. Or you look at your backdrop, that light is driving me nuts. And then I guarantee the next show, that light's not going to drive me nuts. It's going to be fixed. And then I could give you 100 examples of that. Our buttons that are a matte finish and it says Center Podium down the corner rather than, and the reason is a shiny button. You know, there's a shiny button is when it hits the light, you can't read it, right? But when you have a matte button, you can always read it, and everyone has a Center Podium logo on it. And this is an old one, but the new ones, they don't, it's those little details that don't take a lot of money. It's just about being conscious of these things and recognizing that we're never good enough. And it's the bodybuilder in me. You always can improve.
Oh, there's always
Jay
something.
Cutler looked at himself in the best and still wasn't good enough. Well, that mindset sticks in your head once you've been a bodybuilder.
Yeah. What is it? Be happy with the progress you've made, but never be content.
Yeah, 100%.
My dad said that. It was one of the great bits of life advice. Some were drunken tales, but some were good.
Every man should have some drunken tales.
So keeping on the Legion theme, because now there's so many different things. You've got, powerlifting, you've got strongman, you've got the CrossFit stuff, you've got the night fighting, you got the jousting. And I wanted to circle back on this because when I saw it initially, I was like, I got to check the date. Is this a April's Fool's? What is going on with the pillow fight?
So, Bill, I'm always trying to bring new entertainment into it. And, when you have your posters, all bodybuilders, you're going to push away a lot of an audience. And if you want to grow your sport, you got to make everybody feel welcome. You got to give everybody a platform. And maybe somebody comes, we added cornhole, maybe somebody comes to play cornhole and I see men's physique, like, oh, men's physique. Like, I thought I had to be the 300-pound monster, but I can wear board shorts. I don't have to wear a bikini bottom, and you go, you know what? I want to do this. And so the more we can include people, the more they're going to feel included. And that's what these other sports are about, just having a real fun time. Those pillow fighting guys, they do have 250,000 followers on Instagram.
Wow.
They have events on ESPN 8, ESPN 2, ESPN
Ocho?
Live, the Ocho. So they have quite a bit of reach. Was it Dana, the UFC guy?
Oh yeah, Dana White.
Yes, he's talking shit about them, which is great. I wish he would talk shit about me because I made it, right? Yeah, that's what it's about. It's just making it fun and inclusive.
Yeah, that's fun. I saw that and I was like, I'm not gonna lie, it looks like a good time.
Right. Sumo wrestling we added this year as well. So
Oh, man, that's awesome.
yep. So I want to try to get some of the pros who are just there to do appearances to mess around with some of the other sports. I think Sergio said he would sumo wrestle if he wasn't competing, and he just told me he's not going to compete at the Legion. He's going to be at the Legion and meet with the fans and such. But I'll bet I could get him to do sumo wrestling.
That would be fun. Yeah, that would be fun.
When I first saw the night fighting there, I actually reached out to a team in Sacramento that was there. And then I found out they have a sumo team in Sacramento too. I was like, I want to do all this. Like, that's awesome.
I mean, those armored combat guys beat the crap out of each other. Like, you've seen it in person, and yeah, I mean, that's real armor. It's real weapons, though they're not sharpened. They're blunt, so they knock your ass out. They just don't cut your head off. The one guy, it didn't happen in my event, but he works at my event, and he was fighting. His finger got stuck in somebody's armor, and his pinky got torn off. And he doesn't have a pinky anymore.
Dang.
Yeah, they don't mess around.
Yeah, I've seen the way they train and talk to a few of the guys on the Sacramento team, and it's nuts. I mean, they're athletes, man. That's easy to wear that amount of gear and move like that.
Yeah, that endurance. You think like if you've sparred boxing, 30 seconds, 60 seconds of boxing, you're destroyed, right?
Oh,
Now
yeah.
throw 100 pounds of armor on that. Yeah.
So with having such a wide variety of events that you currently have, is there anything that you haven't had yet that you're like, oh, I can't wait to add this in the future? Or is there something that you really wanted, but it didn't work out?
Somebody just sent me something for female midget wrestling, and I'm kidding. So this is, I don't know if you follow me on Instagram at all, but I'm constantly dumping like ridiculous sports into my story.
I see
as
them, yeah.
possibilities. I don't even, like, people just send them to me now because they know I'm going to put them in. I'm pretty satisfied. What I really want to see is all the sports become the top tier event of their sport. Legion is one of the top ones. Our armored combat is the North American championships. It's very likely that by next year, our the cornhole will be the ESPN event. So actually, they're cornhole. This is a federation that you see on ESPN, and they would like this event to be their top event potentially next year. Same with pillow fighting. So that's my goal, is to see each one. I want to be the Olympics of the Ocho.
With the current attendance, and then obviously, starts branching out onto the ESPN, and you've got, more televised things. Does the current venue that you're at, does it have enough room for the audience to grow that much? Or are you already looking for what's the next biggest thing that we can do?
So this we're using. So the Reno Sparks Convention Center has 5 halls. Um, we're using only 2 of them at this point. So this year the event is about 150,000 square feet, but there's another 300,000 or 400,000 we could potentially grow into. And I get a great amount of support from Reno Tahoe. This Every year of the Legion, they have contributed a nice chunk of money to help us advertise outside of the market. This year, some of that money is being used to help bring in some of the bigger names, which you've probably seen. The Kai Green is coming, and Jeremy Bondia, Cass Gillis, George Farah, some really well-known names. And a lot of that is happening because Reno Tahoe is supporting us, and they see the vision. They see what the Arnold has accomplished in Columbus, Ohio. And I think we can all agree that we like Reno better than Columbus, Ohio, and it's a better destination, weather-wise, time of year. We got Lake Tahoe over the hill. So there's a lot of reasons to come here and maybe stay a little bit longer, come early. So yeah, big shout out to Reno Tahoe making that happen. And I think we can see those kind of things just growing year after year.
Yeah, that's really neat. I didn't know that the city was throwing down like that. That's great. I've always had a great time in Reno. I spent a lot of time over there. And now there's so many new gyms that keep popping up, and they're good. They're not like just little rinky-dink things. They're substantial facilities for sure.
I think Reno's a super cool town. I mean, like the old Reno, maybe not so much when you think of Reno from the 2010. But it's evolved so much. It's not a casino town at all anymore. Yes, we have casinos, but that's a very small percentage of what is here. It's a very business friendly area, so the population is growing. There's great employment. Land values, lots of things are good. Amazing weather, no income tax, Lake Tahoe, 3.5 hours to San Francisco. I mean, it's just a really badass area to live.
Yeah, there's an international airport right there. I mean, there's so many options. I think that's one of the really attractive things about Reno, and even the surrounding areas. You look at Sparks, look at Steamboat. You're close to Carson. Every little option that you think, you're like, I really want to be in the country. Boom, there's an option. I really want to be in the city. Boom, there's an option. It's a really neat place.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I definitely think that a lot of people think, oh, 2010,
Right.
hookers
Reno
on the corner
911.
next to the casino. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still there, but just
Yeah.
there's more.
There's
There's
other
more
options
options.
now too.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty soon there'll be female midget wrestling at Legion.
Yeah.
So when you started moving into some of the other states, because you're in Nevada, obviously you are Nevada. You're in New Mexico. You're in Florida. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're in Texas as well? No. Just in the States, though.
Oh, yeah, those are the 3. We did have a show, remember the Ferrigno Legacy was in California. We used to have the West Coast Classic, and that was a co-promotion. That muscle contest now has taken over after we promoted it for 9 years.
Yeah. So let's see. So the current ones you've got, this is a big list. So we'll just keep it by the states. You've got Nevada, you've got New Mexico, and you've got Florida, and now Kazakhstan, correct?
Yep.
When you moved to the international side of things, obviously, it's the same group of people. It's still the NPC, it's still the IFBB. Was there anything, different that you had to do as far as, the behind scenes, like with the red tape of getting it sanctioned, setting things up, because now you're dealing with, are the Manions still involved in that, or because now you're out of the US, now it's someone else?
No, it's still directly reporting to uh, Tyler Mannion, and then Robin Chang. Do you know
I
Rob?
know
Was
Robin Chang,
formerly
yeah.
the producer of the Olympia, and now he oversees NPC worldwide. So he's between me and Tyler, though. Those lines aren't really that defined. So the big challenge was not definitely not from the NPC. They're very supportive with what we do there. The first time I went overseas was in Russia, and I produced 2 shows in Russia. And there is a lot when a lot it's a lot different when you're in Russia. For one, it's illegal to advertise in any language except Russian. So your sign must be in Russian Cyrillic. You can't say Russian championship. There's a lot more rules. It's harder to get people to do things there, and I think that's you could be attributed to the old kind of communist mindset that tends to take generations to eventually disappear. Where it's a combination of that, and they feel that no matter how hard they work, they're not going to get ahead, and that's because of the government structure there. Again, it's slowly, well, up until the war, slowly was evolving. And then the nature of the culture is they're extremely critical. So, before we had come, it was the IFBB under Rafael Santoja, and they're still there. There, it's called the FBBR, the Federation of Bodybuilding Russia. Um, and we came in and put on a better produced show with stars, with the whole thing than they'd ever seen. And they just talked mad shit on anything they could think of. And that was super disheartening because we worked 10 times harder to put on a show there than we would have here. And then to be, just basically picked apart and criticized for things that who knows why, a lot of it was just the other league trying to cause problems, trying to make it look bad. And again, we were in their backyard, and they didn't want us there. So they did everything they could. They banned athletes. So if you competed in the NPC, you were now banned from the IFBB, and they still do that there. And again, I can't imagine doing that. If I'm McDonald's, I go, oh, you ate at Burger King, you can never eat at McDonald's again. Like, it's not a great business, business choice. And I think now it's gotten to the point where they can't really enforce that like they used to. Uh, the second time, so that was 2019. Then 2021 was we're directly after COVID. And I had applied for a medical visa. I paid off somebody to give me a medical visa, and they go to submit it, and they come back, go, your name is blacklisted. Specifically, your name is blacklisted. And so that means most likely the federation that is sanctioned by the government there knew I was going to pull something like this and had my name blacklisted. What ended up happening was my girlfriend at the time was Serbian, so she was able to go without a visa, and essentially her and the team ran the show while I was just live streaming the entire thing. I closed the curtains, I was on their time, and I'm just every minute was live streaming. I had a laptop set up at registration and hooked into the sound system. I was like, "Hey, dobro pожаловать," and they're like, "What the And there I was talking to them, and yeah, and we pulled it off. I had planned to do, I think, 3 shows in Russia the following year in 2022. When when the troops were lining up on the border of Ukraine, I just looked at the situation, and it was actually 3 days before they actually attacked Ukraine. I pulled all the shows. I said, there's no turning back. There's 10,000 troops on the border. This is not going to end well. Canceled everything. A few of the Russians were like, oh, American, you think you know it all. And then 3 days later, the war started, and that was it. So yeah, and I had a bank account there, and I never saw any of the money from it. Somebody reported that we used an English word. I think we used championship on the medals or something, and the government came and shut down my account, and I never saw the money that was in that account.
Man.
So I mean, I could go on and on. What I can say, now we're in Kazakhstan. That's been really good. They're a much more free country. We don't need a visa to go there. I met a girl there. That's where my girlfriend lives. We're trying to get her here. So I love Kazakhstan right now. but they've been absolutely just fantastic people to work with, just a super positive, Western-minded culture for the most part, very business-minded in a lot of ways, a much more modern society than what we have in the United States. You can kind of see that the United States is kind of stuck in the 80s compared to the rest of the most of the rest of the developed world. So it's always fun there to see what they've got going on.
Yeah, that's neat. Someone asked me the other day, and they're like, "Hey man, how come Center Podium doesn't have a pro qualifier show?" Like, they do. If you win, they'll even pay for you to go to it.
Yes. Yep. So right now, what we've done is if you win first place in any open division, open class, I should say, yeah, you can compete in Kazakhstan for free. And it's it- you got to deal with a big long flight, but once you get there, the hotels are awesome, the food's amazing. You know, I would love to have a pro qualifier in the United States, but I'm not in line for that. It seems like, or at least not in the short term.
Talked to JM quite a few times about this, and I was like, "Look, I'd love to put on my own show, but I'm really particular about where I want it." And I gave him, my two plans. One was in the US and one is in Portugal. And he was like, "Oh man," he was like, "I love the idea." He's like, "These are the people you got to talk to." And I just wanted to pick Tamer's brain. And he shut it down so fast. I didn't even get half the sentence out. And he was like, "No, bro, this area is way too packed for that." And I was like, "I'm not talking about here." And he was like, "Nah," he was like, "Here's what you do. You go find a spot where there's literally no shows. You got to go to the middle of nowhere." And I'm like, "There's probably no shows there for a fucking reason." And he was like, "And then you set up shop there because then you have no competition." I was like,
Or a market.
I'm not trying to steal your people. Like, is nowhere near where you are. But all right.
Yeah, that checks out. That checks out. And
But
it's true that the United States is tapped. Like we have way more, again, Southern California, Tamer's district's a great example is you're in an area with 15 million people, but the average show size, at least up this year, has been like 50 or 60, with shows as small as 30. So their biggest show this year was 109, their small show was 30, and it's a lot of in between. I would not I mean, I'd tell Tyler, take my sanction at that point. And I have told Tyler that. I go, if I ever get on under 100 at any of my established shows, sure, a new one, it takes time. But any of my established shows, pull my sanction. That means something is wrong. Either I haven't managed my market right or my product isn't right. And I think when it comes to Southern California, my observation, and I don't know if it's correct, but John Lindsay had an eighth grade education, and then he went into the army. So what he knew was what he learned up to eighth grade, and then what he learned in the army, and that was, from what I could see, was to just hold territory. And his biggest fear was that somebody else would come in and put in a show, and it would do better than him. And that is what happened when the Ferrigno Legacy went in. His worst fears came true. So the way they've responded to that is, let's put a show on every freaking weekend, so it's impossible to ever have another promoter. And that's what they have. And, as a result, you've got these really watered down shows. I don't think that now it needs to be that way. Tamer is the chairman and he can say, I'm going to cut for, 30% of my shows and I'm not going to give anybody else a show. I think that would fix a lot of things and it would, I think we would feel it in a positive impact, in a positive way in Nevada too, because we've got this huge market of 40 million people in California. If they're not having a great show, they're not going to come back and hire you as a coach. They're not going to come back and come to the center podium. And then we burn through the market and all of a sudden there's nobody left to come and compete.
I know they started doing that, the reduction of shows for powerlifting, primarily with the USPA. The Northern California chairman, Darren Mahoney, I had asked him, my company had put on a powerlifting meet years ago, and we did it kind of on a whim, and I was like, I don't really know if it's going to be anything, but I did. I found a dead area that there was nothing there, and so I put a powerlifting meet in San Mateo, which is a little bit south of San Francisco. And we're like, okay, well, maybe we'll get, half the meet filled up and maybe 100 spectators. Full meet, we had over 630 spectators for a 2,500 square foot warehouse.
Yeah.
And I had a food truck out there. I was like, I want to make it enjoyable because I'm a spectator.
Right.
And we were like, oh shit, we don't have room. And I remember I asked Darren, I moved my own warehouse and whatnot. And I said, I want to do another one. And he goes, no deal. He goes, we got so many meats that we can't even fill out a meat. He goes, there's just too many options. So then people are like, well, fuck it. If I don't do that one, I'll just do the next one. So there's no sense of urgency. And then you end up with these, half-assed situations. And then everyone's miserable because they're like, oh, I got first place. Yeah, it was only you.
And what you're seeing too, I was just at a competition with a client of mine. The USPC and WRPF are starting to blow up here in California. So you have all these other federations coming in that are great. I've competed in both of them, and they're run well. Meets are great. Um, it's just easier to work with them. The USPA was okay, but these other federations are coming in. They're kind of taking over spots now. It's pretty wild.
I think in the powerlifting world, there is actually too the opportunity to start a federation and do better and potentially move into that market and be successful in that market. Yeah, the NPC, there really isn't an opportunity like that. And the reason is simply that there's one Olympia, and what do you want to do? You eventually, the end game is the Olympia. Only way to get the Olympias to the NPC, then to the IFBB Pro League. But I think definitely, and strongman could be one, powerlifting another. Yeah, a little different spin, different product. You could do quite well.
Well, before we wrap it up, one, I definitely want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to do this. This is great. And we've been friends for a long time. So I'm going to ask two questions. Number one, I've been asking this for years, and every time you see me, you kind of laugh and just kind of shrug it off. When is the buffet division coming in? Because there's some fat boys that love to compete too.
Dude, I miss like when we used to do the you could eat breakfast buffet after the Tahoe. I would buy every competitor breakfast. And then after COVID, they got rid of the breakfast buffet. But man, I would go to the only reason I didn't stay out till Opal till 5 a.m. was so I could be at that breakfast buffet. Now I just have to stay up all night at Opal.
So moving forward, what can we expect new from not only from you, but from Center Podium? What's new and exciting coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, the big thing with us is you always have a place where you know you're gonna have a great show. You're always gonna have a lot of other athletes on stage with you. You're gonna have the custom trophies, the custom medals. That will always continue. What we want to do is continue longer term goals for the shows would be to see bigger cash purses. And that really needs to come from the sponsors, but also especially the pros stepping up, committing to the shows early. Like I said, it's a legion. It's all of us needs to work together. I can't do it all on my own. So if you're a big name and you're a pro, I always let me back up. I always make the analogy: are you going to see a concert if you don't know who's playing? Of course not. And if I don't know until the Monday before, I can't plan my flights. I can't plan. I'm not going. Even if it's my favorite guy ever, I can't go. So a very simple thing for athletes is to not keep it a secret. And when you put it out there, then the sponsors come, then the spectators come, and then we can really see these cash purses grow. If we know we're going to sell 10,000 expo tickets, oh yeah, I can make a cash purse $300,000-$400,000. But if everybody isn't being part of this, then we can't get there. But that is my goal, and that's why I say this is I hope we get through to some people and we can see these kind of things take place so we can all work together and really get to the next level with what these shows are capable of being. Other stuff we always have, Center Podium TV is growing. If you don't know, Center Podium TV is our app, where we have tons of original content, but we're live streaming probably 10 other promoters' shows at this point. It's becoming the go-to place. If you want to say, oh, I wonder if there's a show this weekend, you can check Center Podium TV. It's like, cool, I'm going to watch this one in North Carolina today. I'm going to watch this one in Florida today. And that having that opportunity is like if you follow baseball or football, like, when the game is going to be on and you know where to watch it. We don't have that until now. And I hope more and more promoters are going to join us on Center Podium TV so that everybody knows, hey, I can get behind this. I start to follow athletes, I become a fan of the sport, and that's how we can really grow. So, it's all about everybody just working together. And when you have an individual sport that really have blinders on, you're in the gym, you're hungry, you're pissed off, you kind of forget that we are part of this community. And to make this grow, we have to work together.
Yeah, that's great. No, I know the Center Podium TV. You've got the seminars. I mean, you've got a lot of things going on. So where can people find Center Podium? Where can people find you if they want to get a hold of you directly and give you money? And then you can pass it on to me because I love money too.
So centerpodium.com is the website. And we have a couple of Instagram pages at Center Podium, at Legion Sports Fest, if you're looking for specifics. Hit me up on Instagram at Chris Minnes, ChrisMinnes. And yeah, happy to help out any way I can. And I love hearing people's ideas. I'm always open to new stuff.
Awesome. Real quick before we go, I have an idea for you.
Let's hear it.
It could be the next big thing for Legion. So, if it takes off, just know you heard it here first.
All right. I'll get you your cut.
Okay, I think everyone needs to wear 1950 style swimsuits, and we're going to chase a pig that's covered in grease.
All right. Now, is it like in the whole expo, or do we just have like one arena for that?
The whole thing. And then we're going to hire a drone company to fly the drones around and film it so you never miss the action.
It's not a bad idea. I like
And
it.
here's the kick to this, because I always got one thing extra to add, because I don't know how to shut up. We're going to get sports betting involved so you can bet on the competitors before it happens.
Obviously.
Obviously, because it's in Nevada.
Yeah. It has to be live streamed. And I've seen, so it's funny because I don't know if you've seen any of the ones that I've popped up from Germany where they duct tape things to a wall and bet which item is going to stay on the wall the longest.
Yeah.
Like, you see what I'm talking? They've got all kinds of weird shit like this where they're betting on it. So, it's not that far off. It's not that far out of the range. I do think we probably need an arena or an obstacle course just because the pig is greased up. If the pig wasn't greased up, maybe it'd be all right.
It would be too easy if the pig wasn't greased up.
I agree. I know that, but yeah, I think we need to have it in.
I mean,
I
honestly,
think an obstacle course.
if you're going to do an obstacle course, then you have to bring in the hobby horse scene.
Oh yes.
Oh
Well,
goodness! Please don't.
I think we combined parkour, hobby horsing, and a greased pig, and we're good.
There you go. It just needs a cool name and we'll be good to go.
We'll work on that. That'll be our next interview.
All right, Chris. Well, thanks for hopping on. Josh, I know you got to get out of here. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks, man. Take care.